For 28 years of marriage, I slept beside a woman I believed I knew well, until the day I realized that every sunrise in my house was hiding a secret. My wife, Claire, wakes up at exactly 4:30 a.m. Every day like a clock. She slips out of bed so lightly that I only hear the springs creak softly. Then she goes downstairs, into the bathroom, next to the kitchen, locks the door, and stays in there for exactly 1 hour. Not a minute off. At first I reassured myself. Age, back pain, habit. I asked once. She went pale, forced a smile, said it was women's business, then changed the subject. I respected it. I stayed silent. But silence that drags on will turn into suspicion. Then one night, I heard the water running in short bursts, the rustle of packaging, and a moan held back like someone biting a towel. My heart went cold. The next morning, I stood in front of the old door, staring at the keyhole. I crouched down, and my world shattered. I didn't go into the bathroom that morning. I didn't kick the door in. I didn't scream either. I did what a man who's used to staying calm does when the world has just cracked. I stepped back, as if being just one step away from that door could make everything normal again. But no, that image clung to my eyes all day, scar on top of scar, patches of rough skin stretched tight by years. And the way my wife bent over the mirror, biting down on a towel to swallow the pain, as if this house wasn't safe enough for her to breathe it out. We live in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, in a 2-story wooden house with a backyard and an old maple tree. I used to think life had settled into a rhythm, quiet, neat, familiar. That's why her 4:30 habit stood out even more, like a crack on a white wall. It started about 10 years ago, after a bout of back pain. She said she woke up early to soak in warm water so her joints wouldn't stiffen. I believed her. Then it became a ritual. 4:30, she sat up, waited until my breathing was steady, slipped out of bed, and went downstairs. I'm a light sleeper. Just the creak of the floor is enough to wake me. I lay still in the dark, listening to the stairs groan softly, listening to the bathroom door close, then the lock click. 1 hour, every single day. Some mornings I looked at the clock and laughed at myself. A man nearing 70, counting minutes like a guard on duty. I told myself, she needs privacy. Leave it alone. But privacy is different from fear. And I heard fear in the way she locked the door, in the way she turned the water on and off quickly, as if to cover up another sound. Other signs began to appear, like puzzle pieces dropping onto a table that I deliberately refused to pick up. My wife always wore long sleeves, even when it was hot. When she changed clothes, she turned her back to me so fast I thought it was just modesty. When we were intimate, she always turned off the light, pulled the curtains tight. I used to joke to lighten the mood, but her smile was thin and hurried, like someone afraid of being looked at for too long. And on rainy days, she moved more slowly. I saw her press a hand to her side when she bent to pick something up. I saw her bite her lip when she stepped up onto the porch. I suggested seeing a doctor. She shook her head. It's just little aches. Then she changed the subject. Then silence. I asked once, 3 years ago, a winter night, snow whitening the walkway. We ate soup, the TV running a weather report. I set my spoon down and said it plainly. I'm worried. 4:30 every day. An hour in there. What are you doing? She froze. Her face lost its color, her hand gripping the spoon until her knuckles went white. Then she forced a smile. Women's business, don't ask. It wasn't the answer that bothered me, but what was behind it. Don't look here. Don't touch this. Don't make it real. I respected it. I backed off. But from that night on, every time 4:30 came, I couldn't fall back asleep. I started hearing sounds I used to ignore. A jar being opened. Tape being pulled. Silences so long I thought she was sitting there motionless. And sometimes, very rarely, a moan held back low and hoarse like someone clenching their teeth so a sob won't break loose. The morning I crouched down to the keyhole, I heard that moan more clearly than ever. And when I saw her back, the first thing I thought wasn't betrayal. I thought of a sentence cold as stone. Who did this to you? That night, she came home like always, carrying bread and milk, kissed my cheek lightly, asked if I wanted more sugar in my coffee. I nodded, pretending to read the newspaper like every other night. But my eyes couldn't see the words anymore. I could only see the bathroom door. I could only hear that lock click inside my head. And I knew that if I stayed silent one more time, I would become an accomplice to the pain of the very person I love. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my side, eyes open, listening to the heater cycle on and off, and listening to Claire's breathing beside me. She faced the wall, her shoulders stiff like she was holding herself up from falling apart. I didn't dare touch her. I was afraid even a hand on her back would make her flinch. I told myself silence was respect. Around 2 a.m., I went downstairs for a glass of water. I stood in front of the downstairs bathroom door. The old lock sat there like a black box. All I had to do was turn the knob and go in. I didn't. If I broke that door with anger, I'd lose her to my curiosity. The next morning, 4:30 came right on time. Claire slipped out of bed so quietly I only heard the faint squeak of the springs. I pretended to breathe evenly. She went down the stairs, and then the lock clicked. Right after that, the water ran in short bursts, like someone turning it on and off to cover another sound. Then silence. I sat up. I looked out at the backyard, pitch black, the old maple standing there like a person in shadow. I told myself, don't follow. But then I heard plastic packaging crinkle, a jar lid twist open, and a sharp breath held back. I pulled on my jacket and went downstairs. A thin strip of light showed under the bathroom door. I stood a few steps away and just listened. Tape pulled, long and slow. A pause so long I thought she'd passed out. Then a rough moan slipped out and got cut off, like she'd bitten down on a towel. My chest tightened. I lifted my hand toward the doorknob, then stopped. I couldn't force someone in pain to explain on my timetable. When Claire came out, she avoided my eyes like they were fire. She went straight upstairs. I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, and realized I was carrying a secret that didn't belong to me. All day, old pieces rose on their own. The way she startled when someone touched her shoulder, the way she moved away when I tried to help with her coat, the way she snapped the lights off like she was afraid of being seen. I used to call it personality. Now, I called it what it was, a reflex. That evening, she cooked, like always, keeping the house calm by force of habit. But her eyes kept darting to the clock, like she was waiting for an hour even worse than dawn. When she took the trash out, cold wind cut across the yard. She wrapped her arms around herself. As she turned back in, her sleeve slid up and exposed a dark patch on her arm like an old burn mark. She yanked the sleeve down so fast I knew she was afraid of being seen. On the second night, I decided to change the approach. No interrogation, no spying, just presence. At 4:30, the moment Claire left the bed, I sat up too. I followed her downstairs. She stopped short on the stair, frozen. I spoke softly, using the calmest voice I had. Claire, open the door for me. I don't want you in there alone anymore. Silence from inside. I heard a tight breath. Then the lock turned, slow like someone lifting a heavy gate. The door opened a crack. Bathroom light hit her face, showing how red and exhausted her eyes were. What did you see? She asked, her voice raw. I swallowed. I saw you hurting, I said, and I saw you scared. Her mouth trembled. If you know everything, you'll hate me. I shook my head. I only hate one thing, that you've had to carry this alone. She closed her eyes like a person standing on the edge of a cliff. Then she opened the door wider and stepped back. On the sink were bandages and ointment. I didn't stare. I looked at her. You don't have to tell me everything right now, I said. Just tell me what you want me to do. Tears fell, silent. Don't leave me, she whispered. And don't let me go back into the dark. I stood at the threshold, not stepping fully into the bathroom. I was afraid that one wrong step would make Claire slam everything shut again. She pulled her robe tighter, her hand gripping the edge of the sink like someone holding on to something real so she wouldn't drift. I won't leave you, I said. But you have to give me a way to stay. Claire looked at me, eyes red but sharp. You want to know everything, don't you? I want to know enough not to hurt you more. She turned away and opened the cabinet under the sink. Bandages, ointment, disinfectant. A sharp smell rushed up. She lifted the robe a little at her back. I only caught a glimpse of a rough, uneven patch of skin stretching on. Scars layered over scars like fire had licked through and then cooled. I clenched my teeth to keep steady. Don't look at it like that, she said softly. I don't want you to pity me. I don't pity you, I replied. I'm angry. Angry at who? Angry at the person who made you hide, and angry at myself for living next to you and not understanding. Claire was silent. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out an old shoebox wrapped with tape. I recognized it, the thing she always kept at the bottom of the closet and avoided whenever I tried to tidy. She set the box on the toilet lid, like she was setting down a stone. You said your parents died early, she said. That's true partly. They died, to me, from the time I was little. She peeled the tape and lifted the lid. Inside were crumpled papers, a few old photos, and a yellowed envelope with a county seal. Claire took the envelope out, her fingers trembling. I was adopted, she said. 7 years old. I felt my heart drop. I knew she didn't talk much about her childhood, but I had never connected it to the fear living in this house. Right in this house. From the outside, people would say I was lucky, she continued, her voice hoarse. Nice house. Church. Family photos on the wall. But behind the door, I learned one rule. Stay silent and you'll be safe. Speak up and you'll be punished. I didn't ask more. I just stood there, letting her choose the pace. The scars, I said very slowly. Claire closed her eyes. From them. From the years when I wasn't a child anymore, but I wasn't an adult yet. Beaten for spilling milk, punished for talking back. Once I was burned, for being stubborn. She choked, her hand squeezing the envelope until it turned white. And once I was tied up in the laundry room all night. I remember the heater clicking, just like now. I felt my throat tighten. Claire, don't say poor thing, she cut in. I hate that word. I survived. I just don't want to be looked at like something broken. I took one step, then stopped at the boundary she could handle. I see you as my wife, I said. As someone who walked through fire and still stood. Tears ran down her face. I wake up at 4:30 because that's when they slept the deepest, she said. Back then, that was the only time I had to wipe blood, put on medicine, change bandages without being found. My body remembers. Even now, when everything is quiet, that's when I can breathe. And you lock the door, I said, because you're still afraid. Claire nodded, very slightly. I'm afraid you'll see and leave. Afraid you'll ask, and I'll have to tell it all. Afraid if I open my mouth, everything will pour out, and I won't be able to control it. I looked at the key in the lock, the key that for years had split the house into two sides. Then start with something simple, I said. Tomorrow morning, you don't lock the door. I won't force you to tell me more. I'll just sit outside, right here. If you need me, you call. I'm Prezella, the timider of the Manus. Claire looked at me like she was testing a promise. Then she nodded. Tomorrow morning, she whispered. But tonight, don't sleep with your back to me. I held my hand out. She hesitated for a beat, then placed her hand on mine. Cold, light, but real. And right then, her phone on the windowsill vibrated. The screen lit up with a message from an unsaved number. You think changing your life means you can get away? I saw her hand trembling. Not the kind of tremble from cold. The kind that comes from a body remembering how fear once kept it alive. Who is it? I asked, my voice low. Claire shook her head, but her eyes didn't say. I don't know. They said I don't want to name it. Tonight, don't ask any more, she whispered. Just stay here. I nodded. I acted like I hadn't seen the message again. But in my head, it had already driven in a nail. For so many years, I thought Claire's war lived only in memory. Now I understood. Her past might be reaching into the present. That night, we lay beside each other, and neither of us truly slept. I kept my word. I didn't ask. I just rested my hand on the blanket, close to hers. When Claire turned over, she reached for my hand like someone reaching for a railing in the dark. I squeezed back, just tight enough to let her know I was still here. 4:30 a.m. came. Claire sat up, her shoulders tense. I sat up too. She looked at me, as if waiting for me to change my mind. I'm here, I said. We went downstairs together. Claire stepped into the bathroom. For the first time, I saw her hesitate in front of the lock. She didn't lock it. The door closed, but there was no click. I sat on the kitchen chair, right outside the hallway. The bathroom light spilled a thin strip of yellow under the door. I heard the water run, then a lid being opened, then tape being pulled. Every sound was small, but now, instead of driving me crazy, it reminded me that she was doing this. No longer alone. "David," she called, her voice breaking. I stood up at once. "I'm here. Bring me the towel in the kitchen drawer. The top one." I did as she asked, my hands slightly shaking. I didn't rush. I didn't burst in. I just slid the towel through the crack like passing a lifeline. She took it, silent for a moment. Then I heard a long exhale, like someone finally letting herself loosen, just a little. When she came out after exactly 1 hour, her eyes were red but lighter. She walked past me and lightly touched my shoulder. A small touch, but to me it was like a declaration. "I'm trying to trust you." I made coffee. Claire sat across from me, both hands wrapped around the mug as if holding warmth. Her phone lay face down on the table. I glanced at it once. "I want to see that number," I said as calmly as I could. "Not to hunt it down, to know you're being threatened." Claire hesitated, then flipped the phone over. I wrote the string of numbers on a scrap of paper. She watched me like she was afraid I would become someone else. "I won't do anything on my own," I said. "I just don't want you alone if this comes back." She nodded. "They used to say, if I told, they would come find me," she said very softly. I didn't believe it was real. But sometimes people get old and still like to control. I didn't ask who they were. I knew if I pushed even a little, she would retreat into her shell like she always had. Instead, I did what I'm good at, preparing. When Claire went upstairs to change, I opened the desk drawer and took out a notebook. I wrote the date, the time. I wrote the unknown number. I wrote the exact words of the message. I took a screenshot from her phone, sent it to my phone, and saved it in a separate folder. Not because I like making a big deal out of things, but because I understood. If the past had started knocking, then writing it down was the only way to keep it from choking the present. At noon, I drove to the county library. Not to read about other people. I needed to know the law and how to protect my wife. I found books on domestic abuse, protective orders, how to preserve evidence. I also looked for anything related to adoption records, but most of it was sealed under regulations. Even so, just seeing those dry terms made one thing clear to me. Claire's life had once been written by someone else. On the way back, my phone buzzed. A new message from that same number. "Don't think having a husband means you're safe." I pulled over immediately. My hands went ice cold. I stared at the words for a few seconds, then did the first thing I should have done from the start. I turned the car around and drove home, not leaving Claire alone for one more minute. I turned the car back toward home, my hands still cold from the words. "Don't think having a husband means you're safe." Claire was in the kitchen, her back to me, stirring a pot of porridge as if this morning were just a normal morning. "It's that number again," I said, and I handed her my phone. She looked for a second, then set it down, as if afraid the screen's light would make everything real. "Don't call the police," she whispered. "Please." "I haven't called anyone." I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "But I need to know. Are you afraid they'll come here?" Claire was silent so long I could hear the kitchen clock. Finally, she nodded very slightly. "They don't like losing control. I left, but they still want me to remember who's holding the leash." I breathed in, kept my voice steady. "Then we do it clean. No noise. We keep evidence. We protect the house." She looked at me, half scared, half angry. "You sound like you're making a plan." "That's no fray. I sound like a husband." I put the notebook on the table, wrote the date and time, the unknown number, the message. Claire stared at the pen as if it were something unfamiliar. "I feel like I'm becoming a file," she said. "No. You're becoming someone protected." I paused. "Who are they?" Claire closed her eyes. "My adoptive mother is still alive. She moved back near Dayton. My adoptive father died a few years ago. Dayton is close enough for someone to drive here in a day." I added it to the notebook, then asked quietly, "How long have you been getting these messages?" Claire opened her phone and scrolled up. There were more than I expected. Short, cold lines, scattered over a few weeks. One line was just a question mark. One line was an address. One line said, "You owe." I felt my stomach heat up. "Were you going to carry this alone again?" I thought if I stayed silent, it would get bored, she said, her voice breaking. I've lived that way since I was a kid. End quote. I stood up, latched the front door again, checked the kitchen window, changed the doorbell camera code right in the app. I wasn't doing it to look strong. I was doing it so Claire could see the present has boundaries. This afternoon, we do 3 things, I said. Print every message. Save the screenshots on 2 phones. And schedule your family doctor. You need a record for chronic pain and old injuries. If this escalates, you won't have to tell it with tears. Claire swallowed hard. I don't want anyone to know. Only the doctor. I looked straight at her. And when you're ready, we talk to someone with expertise. A lawyer or a domestic violence advocate. Someone who stands between you and the past. She exhaled, her shoulders lowering a little. Then she reached out and touched my hand. This time she wasn't shaking. I'm scared you'll see me differently, she said. I see you more clearly. I squeezed gently. And I'll be here, even at 4:30. 17. Just then, the camera doorbell chimed. Ting. The screen showed a figure on the porch wearing a hood, gloves on. The person bent down and set a brown envelope right in front of the door, then lifted their head and looked straight into the lens. Claire stood behind me, her breath catching. The stranger raised one finger to their lips. Silence. Then turned and walked down the steps, disappearing from the frame. I didn't open the door right away. I waited, looked through the peephole, listened to the front yard dead silent. I grabbed gloves from under the sink, pulled the envelope inside. No stamp, no return address, only one handwritten line. Remember. I placed the envelope on the kitchen table, like placing a knife. Claire stood one step away from it, eyes unblinking. I saw her throat tighten, as if her body already knew what was inside before a hand even opened it. Don't open it if you're not ready, I said. No, she answered, her voice small but hard. If they brought it to our front door, I have to look. I put on gloves and slit the edge of the envelope. Inside were old papers, blurred photos, and a lined school notebook page. On top was a black and white photo, a brown-haired little girl standing on a porch, eyes lowered, sleeves too long over her wrists. Claire looked once, then turned her face away, but I saw her chest tremble. The lined page had messy handwriting. Rules. 12 lines, all commands. Don't talk back to adults. Don't touch food before you're allowed. Don't cry. The last line was written in bold. Silence keeps you safe. Claire let out a dry laugh. They still kept that. I flipped to the next pages. A school report with words like anxiety, bruises, inconsistent explanations. Another photo. The back of a child mottled with dark marks. The photo was cropped tight, like the person who took it was afraid of being caught. Claire sat down, a hand pressed to her chest. I pulled a chair closer but didn't touch her. Breathe with me, I said. She took one short breath, then a longer one. Tears fell, but she didn't let a sound escape. I realized it wasn't strength. It was a survival habit. At the bottom of the envelope was a typed sheet, unsigned, with only an address and one sentence. Come here and talk this through. Bring your husband if you want. The address was in Dayton. The date was this Saturday. I looked at Claire. This is a trap, I said. Claire wiped her face, eyes red but clear. They want me to step back into the old role. They want me to come so they can have power. I nodded. Then we don't go alone. And we don't go to ask permission. We go to end it. That afternoon, I called the County Domestic Violence Center. I kept it short. My wife was being harassed. There was a history of abuse. There was evidence. The person on the line asked the necessary questions, then gave me the name of a lawyer for a protective order and a trauma counseling group. I printed every photo and message and put them into a binder. I placed one copy in the car and one in the safe. I changed the back lock, told the neighbors to call me if they saw a strange car. That night, Claire took my notebook herself and added a line, starting today, I won't be silent anymore. Her handwriting shook, but it didn't break. At exactly 4:30 the next morning, she didn't go down alone. She opened the bathroom door, left the light on, and called me in. I stood behind her at the mirror, looking at the scars that had existed her whole life, and understood The most terrifying thing wasn't what I saw through the keyhole. It was how many years she had to believe she wasn't worthy of being seen and still stayed. The phone buzzed. A new message. Come, or we'll come ourselves. I didn't reply to the message. I took a screenshot, saved it, then looked at Claire. She stood in the kitchen, both hands on the countertop to keep herself from shaking. We do this by procedure, I said. Evidence first, confrontation second. The center's lawyer gave us the name Marlene Reyes. She listened to my summary, then said bluntly, file for a temporary protective order, attach the messages, photos of the envelope, and the Dayton meeting date. Don't meet them alone. If you have to meet, choose a place with cameras and witnesses, she said. On Saturday, we still drove toward Dayton, but we didn't go to the address on the paper. I chose a coffee shop with outdoor cameras. A lot of people. A wide parking lot. Marlene sent an assistant to come with us, sitting at a table a few meters away. I also called the non-emergency number to give them a heads up, possible harassment, and asked them to patrol past. Claire held my hand under the table. Her fingers were cold, but the grip was real. 20 minutes later, a silver car pulled up to the curb. An older woman got out, gray hair in a tight bun, eyes like a blade. Beside her was a man holding a phone, his finger already set over the record button. Claire stiffened. I set my coffee down. Finally, you decided to show up, the woman said. No greeting. I spoke first. You talk to the lawyer. You don't talk to my wife. She gave a thin smile. Paper doesn't erase debt. End quote. The man raised his phone. Say it clearly so everyone can hear how ungrateful the girl is. Marlene's assistant stood and stepped closer. You're being recorded, she said. Any threats you make are evidence. The man's face changed. Claire inhaled, her voice shaking but clear. I don't owe you. I'm not coming back. If you contact me again, we will file for a protective order. If you come to my house, the police will intervene. The woman leaned in, her voice low and poisonous. You think having a husband makes you safe? I answered, steady. She's safe, because today she isn't silent. The woman turned to me. Men like you love playing hero. No, I said. I'm just standing next to my wife while she tells the truth. In the distance, a patrol car rolled slowly past the parking lot. No siren, no drama. Just enough to remind them that this time, Claire had witnesses. The woman stepped back, pulling the man with her. Before she got into the car, she threw one last line. This isn't over. Claire watched them go, then exhaled like she'd set down a boulder. I took her hand. For them, there might still be shouting, I said. But for you, that loop just got cut. On the drive home, she rested her head against the window. Tomorrow at 4:30, she said. I'll leave the bathroom door unlocked. You sit with me. 3 weeks after the meeting at the coffee shop, the county court issued a temporary protective order. No noise, just a thin sheet of paper put in the right place. The unknown number went silent. No more envelopes at the door. We felt lighter. Claire still woke up at 4:30 but now she didn't lock the door. I placed a chair right outside the bathroom and made 2 cups of warm water ahead of time. Some mornings, she let me help change the bandage. Some mornings, she only wanted me to sit quietly, letting my breathing remind her that this house belongs to the present. We saw a doctor, then a trauma therapist. Claire didn't tell everything in one session. She told it in layers, like peeling tape off skin, slow, painful but right. Sometimes she got angry at me for looking through the keyhole. I accepted it. I apologized. But she also said that without that moment, she would have kept suffering alone. I learned something. Love isn't demanding every answer. Love is building a safe place where the truth can step out, in its own time. And paperwork isn't cold. It's a boundary written down when words aren't enough. Now, every dawn isn't a secret anymore. It's a new ritual. We wake up together, we care for each other, then we go back to bed, hand in hand. If you're listening, and you also have a 4:30 in your life, remember, you don't have to carry it alone. Document it. Find someone who believes you, and open the door when you're ready. Comment and tell me what city you're watching from, and if you were me, what would you do in the moment you saw the truth?